to New York's #2 sports show. The New York Giants get a surprise victory at the Seattle Seahawks. They win by a score of 29-20 to improve to 2-3. I did not see this coming, especially because Malik Nabers was out with a concussion. The one that he sustained at the end of the Dallas Cowboy game on Thursday Night Football the prior week. So he was not involved. And yet the Giant offense was very effective against the Seattle team. They were coming off of a loss on Monday Night Football where their defense was very much exposed. And they were dealing with some injuries as well on the defensive side, which did not help. Ones that coming into the game also sustained during the game. But hey, like the Giants, this win to me was reminiscent to the Cleveland win. This one was more impressive. A, for the fact that it's against a better team. And again, also doing it without Nabers as well. Like you can't say enough just the shock value that there is, considering that he was just the whole offense coming into this. But yeah, the Giants were the better team in this game. But yet, like the Cleveland game, they let Seattle back in to the point where the Giants could have very easily lost this game. Jackson Smith-Njigba makes that catch on the third down. The play before the Giants blocked the kick and returned it for a touchdown. I mean, Giants could have lost this 27-23, right? Like very, very easily. So as good as it all was, like it's kind of one play here, one play there, where it could have been a pretty bad, blowing a lead. But forget about all that, right? Because expectations for this team are not high. At least for me, they're not. And they're finding ways. That offensive line has been excellent. Just really. And you're as good as your worst lineman. You really are. And that's the big thing, is that who would you want to say is the worst lineman? I guess it's not even fair to say this. So take it with a bit of a grain of salt. I guess Greg Van Roten might be considered that. And that's pretty good, right? Like what the Giants were dealing with in previous years, whether it be Evan Neal or players gone by, like that was a problem. And so Daniel Jones is getting time to throw the ball. But then let's talk about Daniel Jones. 23 for 34, 257 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like you gotta give him credit. And without Malik Nabers, he was able to lead the Giants to victory. A big part of this win was Daniel Jones. And again, like the Cleveland game, it starts off really bad for a couple of reasons. The first play from scrimmage for the Giants was like just crazy. Like Jones I think he trips on Andrew Thomas's foot and they lose like 15 yards or something like that. But then they're able to move to end the field. And then you have a situation of a 14-point swing. The Giants go for a 4th and goal. We'll get into it, but they go for a 4th and goal at like the 1. Eric Gray fumbles the ball. The Seahawks recover it and return it for a 99-yard touchdown or something like that. So that's the thing. Like it's part of the game. The Giants overcome what was really tough. That's really shitty. The Giants had every reason to say, hey, this isn't going to be our day. And that didn't happen. And the defense, they did their job as well against a really good Seahawk offense. Dexter Lawrence, 3 sacks. I mean, he is the goods. Dexter Lawrence he is one of the very best at his position. And he is easily the best defender on this Giant team. Not even close. But you did get good contributions as well. Hey, I got to say, like Brian Burns, he was much more noticeable. He had a big sack after a fuck up by Geno Smith where he slides early, leads to a 4th and short, and then just, I don't know what was going on there, but Burns ends up getting the sack. So as far as some statistics, the Giants get 7 sacks, and that was part of the formula versus Cleveland. So 3 sacks for Dexter Lawrence, 2 for DJ Davidson, 1 for Brian Burns, a half sack for Raheem Nunez-Roches and Kayvon Thibodeau. So that was good. And they did get back Drew Phillips and Adoree Jackson. And, I didn't check. I haven't seen like the snap counts. I guess based on the stats, though, I guess Drew Phillips did get a decent amount of run. I wish I could say with more certainty because it didn't feel like he was out there much. But then again, 4 total tackles, and so you had to have been on a little bit. Adoree Jackson seemed to be the more healthy. So Jackson comes back from his calf injury, as well as Drew Phillips. Offensively is where they had their injuries. Devin Singletary, and this was maybe a blessing in disguise. Singletary was out. And he's not one to miss games normally. I think it was a groin injury. And so Tyrone Tracy, who I've been a big fan of Tyrone Tracy, 18 carries, 129 yards. Looked really, really solid. Just good efficiency, 7.2 yards per carry, and a long of 27, right? So it's not like he ripped off one big 60-yard run and the rest of it's kind of bullshit. He really did well. Eric Gray is a different story. Gray had a couple of decent receptions early on, but again, just there is a definite difference between Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Eric Gray. Darius Slayton really steps up in the absence of Malik Nabers. And, Slayton gets a little bit too much, not hate, but he's kind of just disregarded by Giant fans. He's a good receiver. Does he have drop issues? Yes, but so does Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale Robinson, he goes 6 for 36 with a touchdown, Wan'Dale. Darius Slayton, 8 for 122 and a touchdown on 11 targets. So he seamlessly, honestly, steps in for Malik Nabers and does the job. But, who also stepped up? Theo Johnson. 5 catches for 48 yards for him. So those are the two players that filled that Malik Nabers hole. And obviously Tracy for Singletary, and did a really nice job doing so. For the Seahawks, Geno Smith was not bad statistically, and but there was a DK Metcalf. That was the big thing. He was just off his game. Had a bad fumble that kind of changed momentum. Had a bad drop as well early on in the game. So considering the disparity in good wide receiver play by the Seahawks and the Giants secondary, they were able to hold him down. And hey, Tay Banks didn't get obliterated like I kind of thought he might. Didn't happen. So, look, for me, I wish that there could be more excitement. I don't think that this Giant team is a playoff team. It's not meant as any disrespect. I hope I'm wrong. But I think that with that in mind, again, it leads to not as much enthusiasm. Like, I'm glad, I'm happy for certain players. Winning is nice. It's always nice. But I still need to see a lot more to really be a believer. But hey, if you're being honest with yourselves, the Giants are not a bad team for the reasons I laid out previously. And they are relatively healthy as well. That's a big part of the equation. Now, obviously, Nabers had the concussion, but it's not like a long-term injury. Presumably, he'll be back next week against the Bengals, which we'll preview that game. That'll be interesting to say the least, how that one goes in a primetime game at MetLife Stadium. That's the other thing. Giants, to me, they're a better road team. That's just been the case for a while. And call it, whatever you want to, as far as the Giants not really playing well at MetLife Stadium. That is valid. But on the road, I don't know. This feels like a performance that we've seen before. I mean, the Giants did go to Seattle and beat the Seahawks in 2020 with Colt McCoy. That was different. This offense was, they basically put up 30 points. What ends up happening at the end is the Giants decide to take a knee, which was smart, up 9, and the off chance that somehow the Seahawks block the kick, the extra point, and return it it would be a 2-point score, which would make it a 7-point game. So it doesn't go down in the score sheet as 30 points, but that's really what they did. And look, I think that the Giants, let's see what happens in the weeks to come. My stance hasn't really changed, but at the same time, there is an acknowledgement that this is not some dumpster fire team. And Brian Daboll did a really nice job. Really good play calling by Daboll, put the Giants in positions to succeed, even when he didn't have top talent. And that's the sign of a good head coach. And that's why I am ultimately pro Brian Daboll. And I know that there's been a lot of people that are frustrated by him. I get it. When losing happens to the frequency it has, and some of the decisions that have been made, I get it. But I think that he is someone that you do want in this building. I'm a little bit more weary, as I've said, on Joe Shane between the two of them. But I'm not looking to have this regime go away, right? Like in other eras of time, that would have been the case, where there's motivation to lose for that reason. For me, I would like the Giants to get a top pick. See Jaden Daniels. Now, I know that it doesn't always work out that way, but you have a division rival in the Commanders that ends up getting Jaden Daniels. They are 4-1 right now. That's the unfortunate thing too. In looking at this NFC landscape, and am I going too deep into the weeds? Possibly. But I look at the NFC, I look at the division, and you can't deny that the Giants are 0-2 in division. You throw that all in there, and I just think it's an uphill climb because I would love nothing more than to kind of dream on a playoff appearance, right? Like that's kind of what you're hoping for. But at the same time, I'm not there. I'm not there. Now, maybe a win versus the Bengals, maybe that will kind of get me to a point where like my mindset has changed. But this win didn't do it. But this is the most impressive. I mean, they've only had 2 wins, but most impressive win they've had this season. And they had every reason to lose it. So let's go into the play-by-play. And if things come to mind that I didn't touch on, I'll discuss it. I guess first, just looking at some of the stats, time of possession was heavily in favor of the Giants. 37 minutes to basically 23 for the Seahawks. Third down efficiency felt better. I mean, 7 for 16 is solid, but it felt even better than that from the Giants. Total yards, 420 to 333. That's the thing. Like the Giants, they deserve both wins they have. They deserve them. And so you could really argue that the Giants could have a better record than they do. That Commander win was right there for them to have if they had a kicker. And then the Dallas one, like, I won't go as far as to say that one, but hey, like that was a close game. The Viking one set the season off on the wrong foot. And that kind of is important, because if they win that game, who knows what comes after that. But hey, they are finding a way to, make this a little bit interesting where maybe teams in the past, these Giant teams, they would have lost and they would have dropped to 1-4. Then the whole season kind of spirals out of control. Maybe that isn't happening here. But 175 rushing yards for the Giants, just good efficiency. They got some explosive plays, specifically to Darius Slayton. Only took 2 penalties, a clean game from the Giants, which was good. Only had that, it was a bad turnover. That Eric Gray turnover was obviously very costly, but you could argue that he actually got in. But let's get there first. So going through the play-by-play, the Giants get the ball. No, the Giants kick it off. And the first drive ends in a Seahawk punt. They get to about midfield and nothing more. They punt it away. Giants then put together a really nice drive. After the first play, it's a Daniel Jones gets sacked. Again, I think he tripped on Andrew Thomas. Jones actually fumbles the ball and Thomas recovers it at the Giant 5. So, again, similar to how that Cleveland game, right? What was it? It was Eric Gray fumbling the return, and then the first play from scrimmage, the Browns get a touchdown. So, that was very close to kind of happening here. But the Giants, give them credit, they actually had the first down. And the big play was an 18-yard play from Jones to Eric Gray. Then 19 yards from Jones to Gray. So Gray was not really heard from at all, except very early on. So even though Tyrone Tracy, I think, was considered the starter, Gray was the one that got most of the reps early. I should also mention in terms of practice squad elevations, Isaiah Hodgins, a name that we've probably forgotten now just a little bit. Because of the Nabers injury, he is elevated to the active roster, and he would play mostly red zone snaps. So he was in there, but didn't really make much. He didn't make any impact. And then I believe the other one was Dante Turbo Miller. With Singletary out, you needed a third running back, and so Miller was the one that I believe was elevated. I should also mention Jalen Hyatt. He was on the field a lot. I think his snap count would show that, but he wasn't targeted once. So again, the Jalen Hyatt thing, not great. And who knows what the future holds there? I mean, very clearly, Darius Slayton, if there was ever a question, Slayton is well ahead of Jalen Hyatt on this depth chart. And so, yeah. But Theo Johnson, he was pretty heavily involved early on. Tyrone Tracy gets into the mix with some decent runs. A 3rd and 7 conversion from Jones to Slayton. A 13-yard pass from Jones to Gray. Let's just get to the point of 4th and goal at the 1. And really, 3rd and goal at the 1, Gray could have scored there too, but a nice tackle by Baker of the Seahawks. And then it ends up being, I had it incorrectly, I said 99 yards, a 102-yard fumble recovery by Rayshon Jenkins. where Eric Gray loses the ball, and there wasn't really a great camera angle on it. Like, if they had ruled a touchdown for Gray on the field, I think it probably stands. And so, because they didn't have that good angle, the Seahawks, it counts as a Seahawk touchdown. So, again, what should have been 7-0 Giants is actually 7-0 Seahawks. So, right then and there, and then the Giants actually go 3 and out, which was rare for them today. We go to the second quarter, but then the Seahawks go 3 and out. And the Giants then have a touchdown drive. And Darius Slayton and Tyrone Tracy were the big beneficiaries of this drive, as well as Theo Johnson. And you get a nice 27-yard run by Tracy, 22-yard catch by Theo Johnson, leading to a 1st and goal at the 7-yard touchdown pass from Jones to Wan'Dale Robinson. So Wan'Dale didn't make a huge impact in this game, but he does get that touchdown there to tie it up at 7. And then the Seahawks do punt it away. They would get a 1st down, but not a whole lot else. And Dexter Lawrence sacks Geno Smith to end that drive. So the Giants get the ball back with about 5 minutes left. Again, like, very long drives by the Giants. So, like, this first half was moving along very quickly. And at a 7-7 game, the Giants do make it 10-7. They settled for 3. And the drive almost ended, but there was a defensive holding penalty on the Seahawks that extended the Giant drive. Jones to Slayton for 16 yards. You get to about the 2-minute warning, and they get to a 3rd and 2 at the 20, incomplete to Wan'Dale. And that might have been the one. I know Wan'Dale had a drop that was pretty bad. I don't know if it was that one. It might have been a different part of the field. But Greg Joseph, the Giant kicker, in Graham Gano's absence, 38-yard field goal for Joseph makes it 10-7. However, and mind you, there's 22 seconds left in the half. The Seahawks make 2 big plays. Smith to Kenneth Walker for 17 yards. Geno to Lockett for 28. And it ends with a Jason Myers 43-yard field goal. So the fact that it ends up 10-10 is pretty bad for the Giants. They really should have been up by, they should have been leading, and really by multiple scores even. And then the Giants go 3 and out to start the half. So things are kind of on the up and up for the Seahawks. And then is when, and this might have been actually where the Wan'Dale drop happens on a 3rd and 5. But then the Seahawks moving the ball, Geno Smith to Tyler Lockett for 33 yards. And then Smith to Metcalf is a 10-yard catch, but he fumbles it. And I guess it was Tay Banks that forced it and recovered by Tyler Nubin. This, to me, shifted momentum in a major, major way, because the Seahawks were about to be in the red zone and were looking to retake the lead against the Giant team that at the time seemed somewhat fragile. This, though, gave them confidence, and they quickly go down the field, and Darius Slayton is the one. This is the Slayton drive. 41-yard catch for Slayton. Then they call for him unsportsmanlike conduct, and that was the wrong call. I know they're trying to enforce some of these these unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, and I get some of them, but this, like, they're trying to, I think, take away some of the the shooting of a gun motion. That's not what he was doing. He was pointing 1st down. Like, that was not the case. But it doesn't matter anyway, because the Giants get the job done. Jones to Slayton for a 30-yard touchdown gives the Giants a 17-10 lead. The Seahawks do respond with a field goal. It would be a 48-yard field goal for Jason Myers. You get a sack as well on that drive by DJ Davidson, I should mention. And then the Giants respond back with a field goal themselves. And this was really from middle of the 3rd quarter till just about the end. Tyrone Tracy with a 25-yard run. Slayton with a 9-yard catch to give him a 1st down on a 3rd down conversion. And they do settle for 3. Greg Joseph, 31-yard field goal. So again, like, it feels like the Giants should probably be up by more than they are. But alas, let's go to the 4th quarter. And that is where Geno Smith scrambles on a 3rd and 12 at their own 24 for 11 yards. But he doesn't, he slides short of the 1st. And the Seahawks go for it, which I understood at that moment. 4th and 1 at their own 35, and Smith is sacked by Brian Burns. Total disaster by Seattle. Something that was very avoidable. That was a big moment, as well as the one that we'll talk about later on, that Smith and Jigba drop, and then the blocked field goal by the Giants. So then the Giants go up by 2 scores because they have the good field position. They don't need to do a whole hell of a lot, to be honest. They get 1 first down, and they get a 24-yard field goal by Greg Joseph. The one thing I will say with the Giants is there isn't really that killer instinct. Like, it is rare that we would ever see the Giants just put a team away for good. That is something they need to work on, but baby steps. So the Seahawks, they get the ball back, and again, like, energy is not high. It's a sack to end the drive, split by Thibodeau and Lawrence on Geno. Giants get the ball back, looking pretty good. They're up by 10. There's less than 10 minutes to go, but the Giants do punt it away. And so the Seahawks get the ball back at their own 5 with under 6 minutes to go. And let me tell you, they make this game more than interesting. Metcalf with a 22-yard catch, Kenneth Walker 12-yard catch. Noah Fant gets a shorter reception to give them a first down. Jackson Smith-Njigba with a 15-yard reception. On and on we go to the point where at a second and goal at the 5, Smith finds Smith-Njigba for a touchdown to cut it to 23-20. And the Giants get the ball back just before the 2-minute warning. And they go 3 and out. And the Seahawks, during this, they call one timeout. They go 3 and out. A couple of runs by Tracy and an incomplete pass by Jones to Slayton. So right there, Seahawks put up this 95-yard drive. Giants go 3 and out. And then Seattle, the first play of their drive, mind you, there's 1:40 left. Geno Smith scrambles for 32 yards to the Giant 34. So at this point, you're thinking, okay, is Seattle tying it or are they taking the lead? And on a 2nd and 4 at the Giant 28, I don't understand. Geno Smith kind of takes a deep shot at Tyler Lockett. I just didn't understand that. In that situation, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. And then the next play, Smith with an easy first down pass play to Smith-Njigba, and he drops it. So that sets the stage where Jason Myers needs to kick the field to prolong this game. And it ends up being blocked by Isaiah Simmons, who I think was new to that unit. And I think that they actually kind of studied this and had a plan in place. So they had to tell. And Simmons gets in there, just basically unabated. Gets in there, blocks the Myers kick, and then Bryce Ford Wheaton picks it up and takes it for a touchdown to give the Giants a 29-20 lead. Now, this is not in any way me. I wasn't even thinking about it at the time. Like, Ford Wheaton, to be safe, he actually should have went down. And this goes back to, if I had mentioned this. Yeah, I did mention this. The Giants take a knee on what would have been the PAT, the 2-point conversion, if you will. And again, the reason for that is if it got blocked or something went wrong and they returned it, the Seahawks would have then been a 1-score game. So all that to say that the move would have been for Ford Wheaton to go down, but I don't blame him at all. He's a young kid. Like, no one, like, I get it. So I'm just saying, strategically, technically speaking, that's what he could have done. But hey, good for the kid. Good for Isaiah Simmons. And the Giants win 29-20. So keeping their season alive, if you will. And it's always kind of fluid, right? I mean, like, let's say the Giants, like, they could lose a few games and they win a few games. And so it's like, okay, season's off and season's back on. You can't make those calls this early on. But yeah, Giants are 2-1 on the road. They could easily be 3-0. They really should have won that Commander game. One that might prove pretty costly if they lost. At the time, it didn't feel that way. But as time is moving on, it might. And so now the Giants will go back to MetLife Stadium for a prime time game. Now, that's not a great combination. MetLife Stadium, prime time, and it's against the Bengals. The Bengals are coming in 1-4. So their season's kind of teetering. They just had a really, really tough loss to their division rival, the Baltimore Ravens. So it goes one of two ways as far as the Bengals go. I think it's more, this is a desperate team. Like, and you're going to see that. There is, or I guess, I don't see this happening, but maybe if things start going wrong for Cincinnati, they could fold. Again, like, it is kind of two ranges here. But it's hard to be overly confident based on what we've seen in the past. And this Cincinnati team, it's a tale of two sides. Their offense, that pass attack is lethal. Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, primarily. And there's other contributors there, but it is difficult. Even more so, to me, than the Seattle attack, even though the Seattle attack is deeper, more weapons. But, man, Jamar Chase is I don't mean to compare Jamar Chase to DK Metcalf, but man, Chase is just the goods. And so Giants have their work cut out for them, especially defensively. On the other side, the Bengals defense has been absolutely atrocious. It's been really bad all year long. So therefore, you would think there might be a lot of scoring in this game, especially if Malik Nabers makes his return. So let's see where this one goes. Sunday Night Football, not really a game that I think most of the nation is going to be overly excited about, but again, I think you're going to get some pretty decent amount of scoring, but with the Giants, like you just never know. So again, a surprising win. Giants go out west. They beat the Seahawks. A wild game. It really wouldn't be, I mean, when it comes to these Giant games and these Giant wins, really, you wouldn't have it any other way. They don't know how to win easy, but give them credit for getting the W against a good Seahawk team and a tough place to play. And now they will hope to find a way to get back to 500. I can't remember the last time that a Giant team has been 3-3. I know it sounds very simple. Really, you look, and this isn't, I haven't even checked. I think it's been a long time. It's kind of, because it's mostly been bad seasons where at best they'd be 2-4. Really. And in most cases, like 1-5. And then the few times that they were good, they were better than 3-3. Now, you know what? The one time that I guess they could have been, in thinking back on it, possibly 2016. So take that one aside. But really, again, last over 10 years, this is not a team that has really been 500 at this juncture of the year. They've already declared themselves one way or the other, usually on the bad side. So let's see if they can change this narrative. I need to see it before I believe it. Because again, this is going to be a tough Bengal matchup, but I'm intrigued by it now. This win is it makes me a little more interested. Let's see what they do. Very impressive win. No Malik Nabers, no problems. The Giants go to Seattle and defeat the Seahawks by a score of 29-20.